Welcome to a special edition of Booktopia TV, down here at the Sydney Writers Festival with Hannah Kent,
Hello.
author of the Barrel Rites. It's great to have you have a chance to chat to you, because we often speak to authors before the book comes out, and to be able to talk to someone who's had such great success after the book has reached such heights, and also with the movie news and the like. On the movie news, what does it mean for you? Like, what is this next step? Are you involved in any part of the creation of a movie?
It's still very early days, so I don't know a lot of details. As far as I know, Lionsgate have, picked it up more or less. People have signed on. Jennifer Lawrence has, pledged her allegiance, I suppose, to the project, as has Gary Ross.
That's a pretty big tick.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal, to be honest. It hasn't really, I think I'm still pitching myself a little bit about it. It feels like a very different world, Hollywood and all that sort of thing. But, say that everything does go ahead and it does work out as it seems to be going at the moment. I don't think I'll have a great deal to do with it, to be honest. Yeah. I see it very much anyway. I don't know if I have a choice in the matter, but even if I did, I don't think I'd like to be involved. It's another world, it's another industry, it requires different skills, and that's fine, just as I've sort of taken a story and done my interpretation of it so they can take theirs and do it.
Well, I think you've given any cinematographer or any filmmaker like a great cheat sheet for making it. I mean, it's so visual. The book, I see everything. I see the heart, I see the landscape, I see the water, the mud, the dirt, I smell it. That should have smell-o-vision for your book.
That would be amazing. Yeah, that would be nice.
When I think of the success, it's easy for people to come out and talk about an overnight success, or such a young author coming up with this, wow, how amazing.
Yeah. How
long was the process to get this book done, and what sort of advice would you give to writers? Because to me this is an amazingly accomplished piece of writing.
Thank you.
And I'm curious to see just how much effort went into actually what road you took to get to that finished piece.
Sure, it's look, I completely understand why people see it as a bit of an overnight thing, because there it sort of pops up and it is what it is and it's in the finished form. And all the work towards it, especially as a debut novelist when no one's heard of you, it's very private. But there was a lot of work that went into Burial Rites. It was done as part of a PhD, so I had the luxury of being on a scholarship and doing it full time. And while I'd sort of first heard the stories that it's based on, 10, 11 years ago, it was probably not until I reached my honours year, first year of PhD, that I really sort of embarked on the project as something that I was going to do, and as a long form piece of writing with associated research and so on. I probably spent 2 years of full-time research alone, which is to say, reading and finding sources every single day, a lot of translation, because I think about 2% of everything I found was in English, everything else was in Icelandic. Just that sort of constant, plodding. A lot of it was very dull, a lot of walking down dead ends, as any sort of researcher of history or of any sort of biographical researcher ends up needing to sort of do and go through. A lot of groundwork really before I even started looking at Agnes Magnusdottir's life. A lot of sort of familiarising myself with 19th century Iceland, with the political landscape, with the social nuances of that time, and then finally going to Iceland and accessing the National Archives there, going through ministerial records and finding that nitty-gritty stuff that I needed to sort of, I guess, shape her individual narrative.
Well, with a lot of, when I hear that, if I was hearing a first-time writer do that, I'd think to myself, oh my god, you're going to have so much trouble getting all that information. Because
it's such a stupid book to do. It's worked out, thankfully, but I remember at the time thinking, oh, that's fine, researching another country in a language I'm not, which isn't my first. That'll be fine, I'll work it out. And then I sort of, probably about a year, and I was like, oh shit, drat, what have I got myself into? And then of course I was already committed, I had to finish it, but yeah, it was probably a bit ridiculous.
That's the history side of things and the research side of things. How did you get to write so well? Like, are you reading lots of 19th century novelists? Are you reading, what are your influences on that side of things, crafting a novel and getting those sentences into the set they are, being able to pull out the descriptions in such small space of time? You're not, it's an extraordinarily descriptive novel without much description.
I know what you mean. I think it's a hard question. You know, probably the same things that a lot of young writers are doing, which is to say, you know, I've been reading from a very early age, I've been writing from a very early age, and you're always trying to get better, and for every perhaps nicely formed sentence in that book, I can assure you there's thousands of which are completely hideous and which will never see the light of day. I think it's just practice, to be honest. But also, I do think that there was something about the process of completely immersing myself in this time. A lot of the sources I read, you mentioned 19th century literature. I didn't read so much novels from that time, but I did read a lot of diaries and sort of journals, you know, from people who have visited Iceland at that time. And I think that voice translated just through, again, immersing myself in there. It just necessarily came through. It wasn't really a conscious process. In terms of just trying to write well, I'm a bit of a snob, historically speaking, in terms of the book I read. I really love literary fiction, and while these days I tend to read a lot more other genres, I think if there's something in when you're writing your first book, you aspire to be like the other writers that you admire, so you just work hard and often.
This is the kind of writing that I love seeing the attempt being made, is to try and replicate some of these the great writers of the 19th century, the early 20th century. When I mean, most likely because of the setting, but when I was reading your book, I was thinking of Hampson, the Norwegian writer, with the wonderful growth of the soil and hunger and a lot of the and because, you know, tied in so nicely, because they're so closely Iceland and Norway and the sort of the environment you're in. I suppose the next big question for you, and there probably is growing pressure, is what next?
I know what you're going to ask. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm working on another book at the moment, and you know, I'm not going to lie to you, of course there's pressure and I feel it, but I felt that there was pressure with the first book too, and I think inevitably when you have high expectations of yourself, there's always going to be pressure, whether it's coming from you or whether it's coming from other people, because they're accustomed to you trying to reach high self-expectations. But there's only one thing that I, you know, would think that would be, there's one thing that I would consider worse than coming up with a really, really terrible second novel, and that's not coming up with a novel at all, or just stopping writing because I don't feel that, you know, I became paralysed by that pressure or by anxiety.
Does the success actually give you a little bit of space? Because I know a lot of first-time novelists, they have a minor success, that they're reviewed well, they've been encouraged to do another book, but they're encouraged to get another book out very quickly to try and keep your name in the press and to keep things in the memory of booksellers like me.
Yeah.
But with your success, there's no real great fear of that. So you could probably end up having 5 years writing another novel, and we'd all still wait around for it.
That's very kind of you to say.
Are you getting that sort of pressure to get something out fast, or are they giving you the luxury to say, look, we love what you did, you took a long time doing it, and we want that same wonderfulness again, so take your time?
I'm very lucky in that I have very understanding publishers. Not only do they appreciate that, you know, perhaps I'm not a fast writer naturally, but also that, you know, since Burial Rites has come out, I've had to spend a lot of time doing other things, things other than writing, all for the book and all for good and wonderfully enjoyable experiences of work. But time to write for me is complete sort of solitude and no other distractions, as much as, you know, minimal distractions. And that and I think they understand that there needs to be time set aside for that, but also, you know, it's an unpredictable sort of creative practice. There's no formula. There's always, every book has its own challenges and difficulties, as this one I already know has, and that's fine. I think I'm very lucky in that I do have that understanding. And as you say, there's I've been hugely fortunate in that there's enough publicity that hopefully when the next one comes out, people won't need their memories jogged so much. But
we'll make sure of that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for talking with us.
Oh,
it was a great pleasure. I've been wanting to talk to you for the whole time it's been going on, and there's always been things happening, and it's been great to get a chance to chat to you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Burial Rites is available from booktopia.com.au right now.